Y'all ready for this long episode? What's up, gang? My name is Chris George, and welcome to the one and only Room and Board, if you don't count the furniture store of the same name, who was definitely there first. But still, here we are with another episode of Crowdfunding Countdown, where we take a look at every single campaign leaving next week. That's right, every single board game campaign finishing up. And when I say every single one, well, you can bet that I mean we're doing every single one. And there are many. First off, though, my people, I friggin' love you all. I just want to give a shout out to my incredible community out there because I see you. I appreciate you. And you know, sometimes it feels like there are an awful lot of coincidences out there with people using the exact same language as you do without changing even a single word to differentiate it or referencing you whatsoever as they blatantly rip off your ideas. And it just feels really nice when I see my community is there to call it out. In this hypothetical situation, you know, I see you and I appreciate you. And I appreciate you all. I think we have an awesome community here. I love the discussion that we're able to get into, and it is fantastic being able to hang out with you week after week. Anyway, that side note aside, let's get into the games this week because we have a lot of them. For this series, I like to look at games that are finishing up in their funding because, well, deadlines are important and they're important to remember. And this way, we can also evaluate the stretch goals and see what's been unlocked and see what sort of value we are all getting and see if that offsets that inevitable higher shipping cost. All that sort of stuff. So, to say the same thing I usually do, as my turn of phrases seem to end up in video titles that aren't my own, I read through the rule book so you don't have to, and highlight interesting mechanics that get me excited, and so you can all have a better idea if they're worth looking into or not. And that way, hey, you can spend more time playing games instead of digging through pages of Kickstarter looking for new gems. Leave that grunt work to some other bozo, you know? So we have a big week. Enough with the preamble. There are a lot of games this week, and the first one has almost met their funding goal. They're just struggling to get over the line, and that is a card game called Don't Cross Agatha, whose tagline is a fast-paced strategy card game where you use subtlety and subterfuge at the village vegetable competition. But don't cross Agatha. And already, as I'm sure you can tell, this is a theme that has got me hooked. It is a very funny intro video. You're all villagers who are too polite to directly influence your competitors at the village vegetable fair, but you of course still want the largest pumpkin of them all. Except Agatha, the town witch, is fed up with your literal bull crap as you send herds of bulls to trample over the pumpkins of your competitors. And she has decided that not only is she going to play, not only is she going to submit in this village vegetable fair, she's a witch, so naturally she's going to win. And anybody who thinks they're going to beat her, well, she's going to just straight up murder you and turn you into a toad. It's basically the same thing as murder when witches do that. You lose all sense of yourself, potentially worse than murder, because you're trapped in this horrible body until no one kisses you and you die of warts. So you're vying for second place at the Village Vegetable Fair because, yeah, that's all you can get. It kind of reminds me of Heck and Hounds, which we covered in one of these crowdfunding countdowns, in that regard of coming in, getting just high enough. And I really like games that deal with that balancing act. There's also one of the best examples of overdubbing I have ever seen in any video, in their Kickstarter video. It's one of my favorite jokes. The clear post-production, where in order to sub a word, where you have lots of gunpowder to blow up your opponent's crops. As for the game, it's really just a simple take that card game. You add modifiers to make your vegetables more juicy and moist, as vegetables like to be, I'm so sorry. And then you play action cards that hurt other people. So it doesn't fall completely within my taste, but I do have to say that this is probably the most enticing take that game. If there was going to be a take that game to entice me, it would absolutely be this one because I think the theme is just very, very funny. Until, of course, the next take that card game comes along with two witches, because if you haven't realized it by now, well, you boys kind of got a type.
My type's made of lemons.
No, that is not who I wanted to show up right now. I don't have control over these sorts of things. Anyway, for 21 bucks, you can get it for February 2022, or for 22 bucks, you can get it just in time to test your relationship over Christmas. You know, I was going to be upset about my phone going off to give me a notice, but it is the Domino's pizza app, so I guess I'll let it slide. But if you want to get it for Christmas, that's only in the UK, so it's probably being shipped from the UK. It doesn't have a shipping price, which I think is hurting it, but it's just a deck of cards, so they say that they're going to try to offset carbon whenever they're shipping, so that kind of gives them a pass for me until the shipping bill turns out to be $100 and you all curse my name for not emphasizing it further and for giving them a pass. If you're interested in that, that is Wednesday morning at 10:27 a.m. Now, next up, we also have one that is so close to crossing the finish line, and this one looks pretty neat. It's a 2-player head-to-head pirate game, oof, that was a close one, where each of you have a ship, and the goal is either to put 3 holes into your opponent's ship, because as we all know, it takes 3 holes to scuttle a pirate ship. No more, no less. That's like rule number 2 in the pirate handbook. Rule number 1 is, I don't know, get scurvy, stop eating fruit. If you think I'm wrong, find me a real pirate to tell me differently, okay? Or, second win condition, you can just murder all the crew on the ship, because then there's nobody to sail it, and, well, in that case, I think you get 2 ships. So obviously, this is the optimal victory condition, but you win with both, because, hey, sinking a ship with pirate cannons is probably the more piratey thing to do. So your ships are going to constantly be sailing beside each other, moving into position, slowly creeping up as you ready your cannons to fire that one blast into their hull. You're going to play 1 action card simultaneously. You'll all start with the same 7, and then you can grow and customize your deck as the game progresses, swapping out some that you don't want and getting more cannon attacks, because obviously that's the only card you're ever going to want to play, regardless of your ship's positioning. And then when your ships fully pass by each other, you of course get that wonderful moment where they have to turn around, get into prime cannon position, and sail back again. Which I always love thinking about, the time that it takes to turn these 2 ships around. I mean, probably you're going to be boarding the ships at that time, but don't ruin my fantasy. I'm just picturing all the pirates staring at each other, waiting, tensing, bracing for impact. But also still, the system that made it so that cannons are only on 2 sides of the ship. Did they ever exist on more than just one side? I feel not, because the cannon blast was so powerful. We're getting way off track here. But honestly, it looks great. Not to mention the fact that it was designed by an actual pirate. I mean, just look at him. Move over, Jack Sparrow. We got a new sailor in town. Now, it's $44 for the base game, and they do say, hey, click on this reward for shipping information. But when you click on it, all the shipping information it tells you is, we ship to literally almost every country. Some way, somehow, we'll get it to you. Even if we don't know how it's going to be fulfilled outside of Europe, which isn't great. And honestly, it's a little expensive for my taste. If it was in that $20 to $25 range, though, this system seems interesting. There's that tense, what card are you going to put down? You know what cards your opponent has. It's that bluffing mechanic. And I think it looks pretty fun. I mean, they also have a deluxe version, which you don't need, and a 3D version where they 3D print both ships for you for $360, which you absolutely do not need. If you're going for this, just go for the base pledge. But it honestly looks decent. Mechanically, I think it'll be fun. So if you're interested, that is Thursday at 7:03 a.m. Now, next up, we have a campaign that is pretty near and dear to my heart, because it's by the creators of probably the best party game out there. This party game, I'm of course talking about the world-renowned offensive adult party game, which I didn't get a chance to back, and I'm very happy it's available to purchase for this time around. For those of you who lack creativity, and I know there's at least one of you watching this might be a great game for you. But we're not here to talk about the offensive adult party game, even though it is fantastic. The creme de la creme of party games. I think I said that expression in the last video too. Lots of creme going around, I guess. In November? No. But this time, they have innovated once more with their newest Kickstarter, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say it right now, this is probably going to end up being my pick of the week. It is essential to any collection, and I do not use that term lightly, and that is, of course, Deluxe rock, paper, scissors. I don't know about you, but I am tired of using my hands. These archaic shapes. What are we? Uninspired troglodytes? No, we are modern people and we deserve to have a game that celebrates our ingenuity as a race of humans. And that's why this deluxe version is so good. And you know me, I'm usually pretty against deluxe components because I feel like generally the gameplay doesn't really change with the deluxe version and it really just appeals to our need for shiny things. But also, look how shiny that beautiful amethyst rock is. Not to mention the detail on that metallic gold performance paper. I mean, I hope the quality that we get is very similar to what they have in the prototype, because that, I don't see how you could improve upon perfection. Prototype? That's incredible. It really makes these components worthwhile. But also, in terms of value, think about how many times you've played this game in your life and how many times you're gonna play it from now until your inevitable death. Sorry to bring up your death. The value here is incredible. I love that it's so short you can play multiple rounds, you know? At the beginning of a game night, in the middle, if you want to have it take the whole evening, at the end of the game night to wind down. And also just think about how jealous everyone's going to be when you log your 1,000 plays into the BG Stats app and you share that on your Facebook group saying, hey, look at all the games that I got to play over the year. And everybody else? Well, they'll all feel like dirt. They'll feel like they need to give up the hobby altogether because clearly you're finding the time, you're making the time to play all these fantastic games, almost 3 games a day at this point, and they know that they will never amount to your greatness. And honestly, isn't that what this hobby's all about? Now, there is something to note here. I don't want you jumping in without doing your research. It does look like the deluxe version only gets you enough components for 1 set. And you can definitely play with 1 set. The rules there are fantastic. But I think for the optimal experience, you should get 2 sets. Not to play with them both together, but because this is going to be such a popular game that everybody's going to want to join in, and it only has a 2 to 3 player count. So it's good to have a spare set for when you have a larger group of people. Now the rules are also a little complex. It's very lucky that they do have a how to play video by Rodney Smith at Watch It Played, which you should definitely watch. It's on their campaign page. I know for me, it really helped illuminate all the nuance that this game truly brings, because the concepts, they can be tricky here. I mean, I have read a lot of rule books and this one just, it was on the more inaccessible side, but I just think it's so worth it. I think watching that video and watching their main campaign page video is absolutely worth it. They'll set your mind right at ease. You'll know if this is the game that is right for you. And honestly, if you are serious about this hobby, this is the one. This is the one game you need to purchase. Or if you've ever once chuckled at one of these videos, not that you would, I don't presume that you might have given me one single chuckle at one point. I think is too much to ask, personally. I feel like you'll also cry. You'll be moved to tears with the passion that this campaign is bringing forward in this love letter to an old classic revitalized for the modern age. I'm honestly comfortable to say that no board game has moved me to tears more than this game. And I now finally realize how board games can be considered an art form. It is, that's all I have to say. A picture is worth 1,000 words. So I give you 3 pictures today. And hey, I'll give you a little tip. If you're playing this game, be like Bart Simpson, because he knows
Good
that
old rock. Nothing beats that.
I know there's more to that clip, but I'm sure it isn't relevant. Anyway, I could go on forever. I have been going on forever. I could talk about the game trade. I could talk about the solo mode. I could talk about everything. I could talk about this game for hours and hours and hours and devote this entire channel to this perfect emblem of the board gaming hobby, but we have to move on to the other garbage that's finishing up this week that cannot compare to the beauty that is Rock, Paper, Scissors Deluxe. I'm sure you're interested. It's not a question of if. I don't like to promote this FOMO, but if you don't get it now, you will forever regret it for the rest of your life. So make sure you don't miss it. That's Thursday at 8:04 a.m. Now, next up, we have Drunken Masters. And I'm always very interested in drinking games being produced. Not that I'm a particular fan of drinking games. I don't drink that much. It was a point of pride of mine in university that I didn't drink all throughout university. And now I do it infrequently. But since I've always been inclined to games, have a proclivity for games, some might say, whenever somebody would suggest a drinking game, I would be intrigued, and I would watch and want to partake, and then I would always be disappointed by how much of a non-game they really are, since they all used to involve turning over a card and drinking that many cans of Alka Brew. There are no good drinking games. Just end of story. There aren't. Or at least not in the sense of the game. I mean, in the sense that they all achieve their goals, which is to get all the players just hammered and forget the game and walk away and go do something else. Well, then they are all very successful at that. But in terms of them being actual interesting games, I have never seen a good drinking game. And I think there is a market here, and I think there is a market for a game that does involve drinking. And Drunken Masters is on the right track, but they're not quite there yet. Your health points obviously have to be your drink, because the more damage you take, the more you get inebriated, and the more you make poor decisions because you're stumbling around all dizzy. That thematically is great. And Drunken Masters has this. They also have the concept of mini games, which I think is also along the right track. Little tiny games, kind of Mario Party-like. Again, you whittle down your health points, but otherwise for this game, it's just roll, move, flip over a card, maybe do a little mini game. And maybe that's all you need. And maybe that is all that drinking games can aspire to be. I think it's close, but for me, this is not yet the perfect drinking game. I will not be partaking in Drunken Masters. If you're interested though, it's $35 US. I don't know, it's just a board and some cards, but in true drinking game fashion, they are going to put up online. You can submit your own rules and your own tweaks to it, and they'll post those online, so you want to scroll through there, and maybe the game will develop into something masterful with a large drunken community. I don't know. If you are interested in that, that's November 11th at 8:59 a.m. Next up, we have A Box Full of Harlots. That's the title. Do you want your D&D campaign to have more harlots? Well, this is a real thing that is funded and exists. And I mean, that's all I really need to say on the matter. It's pretty self-explanatory. But this one that you're looking at now, this beautiful harlot, is called Sweet Candy Brazen Strumpet. So, I mean, come on. Just go back it on the spot, I guess. Anyway, as I was looking through, it made me laugh, so I thought I'd share it. That's it for this one. Search A Box of Harlots if you feel your D&D campaign needs it. You can get these sweet strumpets over here. We're moving on. We have too many to get through to spend too much time on this for now. Now, next up we have Lords of Ragnarok. And I've already talked about this one a bunch. I have 5 reasons you shouldn't back on it. So if you're wondering why I personally am interested in this one and you haven't seen that one, definitely feel free to check it out now that you have my permission. I know you've been waiting. But this one is an exciting one, and there are definitely reasons to add it to your collection, and also reasons not to. But we're not rehashing those. What I want to cover in this portion of the segment is let's take a look at the stretch goals, because we're nearing the end of the campaign, and I don't want to say that I told you so, but you can check the tapes. Pretty sure I called it. We have exactly what we were expecting for the stretch goals. A 5-player expansion, part 1, is in the works. Woo! I wonder what stretch goal they're going to unlock in the next couple of days. Maybe it's part 2. Spoiler alert. We also have a couple extra heroes voted on by those in the campaign, and I'm happy to see that they made the correct choices this time. And we also have a couple of extra monsters and a couple of extra monuments. You'll have to decide for yourself if that extra content is worth the extra shipping cost. For me, it's not worth that extra $70 of split shipping that I would have to pay, because usually you want to go for the split shipping wave, because then you get your game literally a year sooner than you would otherwise. And I don't even know why they have to have split shipping to begin with in this. Usually it's to provide time for development, but this game feels fairly developed as it is, and the stretch goals are so minimal. I don't know why they'd have to wait to develop them further. And this is a tricky one, because I was really excited going into it, and I thought that I was going to immediately back it. Nothing really grabbed me in a way that said, okay, I really need this game. I think the 2-day stretch goals, wow, that's a fun model. When you label your stretch goals part 1, part 2, part 3, it really doesn't feel like you're getting a lot of stuff. Or it kind of takes the magic out of the reveals. It's like, hey, 5-player expansion part 1. Well, I guess in 2 days we'll get the priests, and hopefully we unlock the rest of the components for the 5th player, so we don't have to wait another 2 days to unlock the 3rd components of the 5th player expansion. Just, the updates seem a little unsubstantial in this one, whereas I've never found that with an Awakened Realms game in the past. I think it's worth noting and worth considering, also because I have found them to be such incredible value games, and you get so much stuff with them, and I've been really happy with all of my Awakened Realms experiences. I love the company, but the stretch goals don't draw me in, the add-ons don't draw me in that much. You have the giants, and you have this extra sea of egg gear, which the only part drawing me in is the fact that your units are called Sneckers. Little Sneckers just snecking around, which of course brings me great joy. And hey, I'm glad I am not excited about it because I was worried I was gonna have to spend all this money, and now I can be happy with my shelf. I can be happy with the bird in my hand, not the 2 in the bush. And so I'm probably not getting this one, but I totally get if you're gonna get it, and I'm interested. Are you gonna get it? Has it pulled you in enough? I am very interested now that we're seeing kind of the tail end of the campaign, what all of your thoughts are as well, of course. Anyway, if you are interested in that, that is November 11th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So just in time for the moment of silence for Remembrance Day. And as soon as that moment of silence finishes, well, Kooky Cats also finishes. I don't know how I feel about this. Here's one where the art looks great. You might think, hey, this is a fun family game. Of course I want Spencer the Fancy Cat on my team. Or for you sadists out there, you have Spike the Hellcat, which, yes, every single one of those hairless monstrosities is officially from hell. You heard it here first. And you might think, oh wow, this game must be pretty involved because it's got a 3-minute and 40-second video detailing all of the mechanics behind it. Well, great, what a great family game. But if you look into it, it's just Go Fish. It's just Go Fish. You have special cards to make it wacky, really, to make it longer, but it's just Go Fish, which also would be a fitting title for a game about cats. So if you're in the market for a $43 game of Go Fish, well, you've come to the right place. The art is nice. Hey, you get those kooky tokens, which get you extra bonus points if you manage to get a set of your own cats that match that symbol. But also, because you need more than 2 cards before you lay the complete set down, you can have this back and forth, I assume, of people saying, hey, do you have a lazy cat? Yeah. Oh, do you have a lazy cat? Well, yeah, because I just picked it and just goes around the circle. I'm sure that has to be in the rules that isn't allowed, but you wouldn't know because there is no rule book because, again, it's just Go Fish. And no shipping information as well. I mean, I really try not to be too harsh in these videos. I try to, I joke, I make light, whatever. This blows my mind how it has made over $35,000 Canadian. And something like a good, decent, solid game of Turning Tides, which is the same price point, is just below their funding goal. I don't know. I guess people love Go Fish. That's the moral of this story. We're moving on. But hey, at least it puts Lords of Ragnarok in an incredibly favorable light by comparison. Now next up, this one is one I'm incredibly excited for, even before looking into it. And that is, of course, Steam Up, a feast of dim sum for Odin. I mean, just look at it. It's a dim sum board game. What a phenomenal idea. The goal, as with any dim sum where you're going to be splitting the bill with your friends, is to, of course, eat the most food so your idiot friends never want to go out for dinner with you again, Martha. You made your bed. I think I have seen this concept in one other board game. One other? You'll get it later. Anyway, you take one of the 12 animal characters, which all have different player powers, and which of course are based off of the 12 Chinese zodiac signs, because why wouldn't they be? How friggin' smart is that? And you're gonna collect food tokens, spend those tokens on eating the food, while also turning the lazy Susan around while Martha's back is turned so she doesn't eat all of the damn barbecue pork buns. I just want one, Martha. Is that too much to ask? I also love that this is Canadian, and people are gelling with this concept because it's raised over $425,000 Canadian already. And most of that is from the Deluxe edition. It's $20 more, so it clocks in at $79 Canadian. The retail is $59 Canadian. And while this Deluxe edition may not be as essential as other Deluxe editions, you do get a lot of nice little upgrades for not that much of a price boop. For not that much of a price boop. For not that much of a price bump. Do you want the plastic dim sum pieces? I mean, of course you do. Do you want 12 Anna Meeples for your little score track? Obviously. I love that this is also such a celebration of Chinese culture, which coincidentally is what Martha would always say after sucking down her 20th shou mai, while the rest of us fight over one tiny little ball of rice because Martha's watching her carbs. But it's got such a great rule book, peppered with information about dim sum, which I certainly didn't know, which is commonly translated with touching the heart, which I never knew and is now touching my heart because of it. And the mechanics, they look decent. It's a simple collect as much stuff as you can effectively while making sure your opponents don't collect that stuff. You know, that style of game, official. But it's obviously the theme and the implementation of that theme, collecting the stuff, being able to peek through the slats of the dim sum to see what's coming up next as they get revealed and create new possibilities, that is making this such a standout. Now, it's $23 extra for shipping, but only $9 extra for each copy after that, so really good for group buys if you can get in on them. Or if you live in Vancouver, they've got local pickup. You still have to pay something for the shipping though, which I don't know about that. But hey, it's nice to do something for the Vancouverites to finally offset their ridiculous housing prices. I say that casting shade like I don't live in Toronto and our premier hasn't abolished rent control and doesn't care about anyone in the lower class. Anyway, what I would say is just make sure you are really interested in these mechanics and not just suckered in by the pretty beautiful dim sum pieces, as it's very easy to be. And make sure that this is something that you feel will get a lot of play, because it is more on the lighter side. So if you tire of those things, I would hate for this game to be sort of a one and done. Anyway, if you are interested, that is November 11th at 12 noon. Next up, we have Winds of Baltoro, and there's a lot to like about the game. The art being one. Honestly, this box art might be my favorite that I've ever seen. That's a little hyperbolic, but it's really delightful. I also love in the rules, they say you can play a short game, which takes about an hour, or a long game, which takes over an hour, but below 2 hours. And I kind of like that way of describing things because it feels more honest. Yeah, that gives me a better impression of how long this will take and what to expect from this game. I think more people should start working in those ranges, those larger ranges. I guess some boxes say 60 to 120 minutes, but I just never believe a time on the box, and for some reason I do believe the time of Baltoro. And I love that all of the names are presumably Pakistani because it is set in Pakistan. And like anything, it is always awesome to see that sort of representation. Unfortunately, that is where my excitement ends for this one, because mechanically it's just like reverse Sorry, where your characters have some stats and there are some events that can happen. You have to roll a dice and you have to roll a certain number to get your pieces to enter the board, and they have to make their way to the center of the board, and when all 4 of your people get to the center, you win. And so you're going to roll the dice, choose which characters to move and where they land, and if they land on an event, then you have to resolve that. But it's really just 2 dice, very simple mechanics, roll and move, which has never really interested me. I don't know. And it's incredible to me that this game is offering minis, which you absolutely don't need, but you absolutely do need to be successful on Kickstarter. So if you get that, it's $65, otherwise it's $40 US. I don't know, maybe this would be a good gateway game for people who have never played a game in their life. That sounded a little harsher than I intended it to. I just think there are better gateway games out there, but it looks really cool. I just wish it were strategic. Anyway, if you are interested in checking that one out, that is Thursday at 1 p.m. Now next up, we have a game where people are getting sick. Stop that! Stop rehashing jokes from other videos, you hack! That is, of course, Resident Evil, the board game. And I've talked about this one in another 5 Reasons You Shouldn't Back video, so I'm not going to go over it in too much detail. But I do want to mention that I have been writing some very interesting Resident Evil fanfic recently. You see, 5 hours later, and that's basically the outline for my first book in the Jill Valentine fanfic saga. Now in book 2, Leon arrives, and he's glistening. 24 hours later. And that'll sort of wrap up the whole saga. I haven't yet put pen to paper, but it's nice to get all that out. Anyway, back to the game. And these stretch goals are also odd to me because they're basically just character skins, but in miniature form. They're alternate costumes. I don't know why you'd want so many sculpts of the same character, especially when they're not changing the gameplay. I mean, do you really need Made in Heaven 96, Chris? Or what about Director's Cut 97, Chris? Or Casual 02, Chris? Because I got news for you. Here at Room and Board, you get all 3 every day, baby. If you haven't checked out the other video, if you're a fan of Resident Evil, check this one out. Steamforged is all about theme, and you might like it. If you're not a fan of Resident Evil, I don't think you have to worry about missing out on this one. But for everyone, that is November 11th at 2 p.m. That's your deadline. Now, next up, we have Paint the Roses, which is a cooperative deduction game with an Alice in Wonderland theme. And it's really simple. Everybody knows the whims of the queen, but only know a few of her whims at once. She is very whimsical and equally parts murderous and wants to chop off the heads of all of her gardeners. So to stop that, you need to figure out what all her whims are and complete them without speaking a sound. I'm sorry. Anyway, in order for that not to happen, for her not to murder you, you have to stay ahead of her axe long enough to fill the garden up completely. If you do, you win. If she catches up to your little marker on the track, then, well, she kills you. And that's what we refer to in the business as a loss. So on your turn, you get to place one type of garden tile in the garden. And then you place clue tokens onto it relative to the number of points that it fulfills on your whim card. So if you have a card with 2 diamond shapes on it, and you put a diamond, and it's touching a diamond, you would put 2 clue tokens on it because it gets both of your things. And then your team has a chance to guess your whim. I said I'd stop. I'm not gonna. So your team gets a chance to guess. If they guess right, you get to move a little bit along the track. If they guess wrong, the queen gets to move and chase and almost catch up to you. So you want to be sure you have to balance out when you give these clues, when you guess. And there's also an expansion with 6 different modules designed by different designers, which on the one hand, I think is pretty neat. I think it's cool and fun to have collaboration with a different sort of viewpoint on this thing. On the other hand, I think, hey, the designer, they know what they want. So are the other modules going to be as good? And then I think, of course they will be, because they're also board game designers, and it's a pretty simple game. So yeah, in that expansion, you have to get 5 keys and actually escape from the garden and move to a better, wonderful new life, instead of just staying in the garden, waiting for the queen to tell you to remodel the whole thing so you can do it over and over again in an endless cycle of terror. So it's $30 for the base game, it's $55 for the base and the expansion, and then it's $60 for the Deluxe edition, which also gives you the expansion. So you just get a bunch of acrylic tokens, but honestly, it's a completely unnecessary deluxification. But if you were already planning on getting the expansion, you said, you played Paint the Roses somewhere, you said, I love this, I want it all, I want to gobble it all up like Martha at Wong's Palace, well then definitely go for that Deluxe edition, because again, it's not as essential as other Deluxe editions. It's only $5, so it seems a sensible thing to do. It looks like you get the same stuff. I don't understand this model. But what matters is not deluxifications, unless it's one specific instance. What matters are the mechanics. And so the mechanics, they seem solid. They seem a little bit basic. If you're looking for a really good deduction game, I would also recommend Cryptid, because that's one of my favorites. I really enjoy Cryptid a lot. But this one, for me, it looks fun. I'd definitely be interested in giving it a try. And $30 is a decent price point. So if you are interested, that is November 11th at 5 p.m. Moving along, we have Circadians Chaos Order. And this is a sequel of sorts, a standalone sequel, not an expansion, but just set in the same world to Circadians First Light. And they've done this with their other games too, but it's worth saying, I love that at the very top of their campaign page, they have a statement that says Kickstarter or retail, Chaos Order and First Light will be going to retail. And that there are no exclusive items in the Kickstarter campaign. And so if you want to wait to get it at retail, you absolutely can. You do not need to worry. They're just offering it here for 20% off MSRP. But realistically, that's going to be the shipping that you're going to pay, and you might be able to get it at your retail store for a bit cheaper down the line. So I just love this approach from Garp Hill Games, and honestly, it makes me want to back their Kickstarter more, because I know that I'll be giving more money to Garp Hill themselves. I mean, you should just pre-order it from their webpage, really, because Kickstarter takes off that sort of 5% fee. If you want to support Garp Hill in the best way, always order from a company's web store. That is how that company will get the most profit, which is cool. If you like the company and you like what they produce and you're going to pay about the same price, why not, right? But I love that. I love that there isn't this pressure for this exclusive content. I love this model. And this is mainly just used as a pre-order system for them, which some people will be up in arms about, that Kickstarter's not meant as a pre-order, but that's a whole other conversation. Anyway, just be happy for other people that they're able to get it, a cool, fun thing down the line. Just be happy for them. Just do it. Anyway, this is a game with heavy asymmetrical player powers. The campaign page itself is incredibly confusing. I have so many questions about the mechanics of the game that are not answered from the campaign page, but luckily the rulebook does a pretty good job, a much better job of explaining things. It says if you control all the relics, you win the game, but at the end of each round, whoever's around the relics of that round get removed from the board. So what's the point of controlling any other relic other than the last one and just bunkering down there? I don't know. Maybe it'll be easier to get the other ones because that's the obvious strategy. I'm not sure. Why are people penalized for being around relics, the things that you're trying to get? I'm not sure. Strategic hypotheticals aside, this is a game of area control and resource collection, basically. You put your people around the board trying to control those relics and getting stuff to help you do that thing. That's it. In a neat way. There's also a cool mechanic where at the beginning of each round, you get to choose one of the phases that's going to happen, like combat, discovery, whatever, and you can say how much it's going to cost all the other players to play it. So you can essentially either block that off for yourself or make people pay you through their noses. That's the expansion on that expression, right? Paying through the nose, pay you through their noses. That makes sense. If they want to take that action. Money, please. I mean, it looks pretty solid. You can't really go wrong with Garphill Games. Shem Phillips has put out a whole bunch of really highly regarded games. It's cool that he's giving a little bit more love to the Circadian universe because the Architects, the West Kingdom world has gotten a lot of attention. He seems to like to put out 3 games in each series, so I'm sure we'll see more Circadians soon, which is great. They're all well received. For me, you know, I'm probably going to wait till retail because I'm too cheap, but I like what they're doing. And if you're interested, that is Thursday at 8 p.m. Now, next up, we have a big one with Senjutsu Battle for Japan. And this one has crossed the $1 million threshold. And I haven't yet done a 5 reasons you shouldn't back Senjutsu because it has been a really busy week. And also, I know I promised a bunch of you in the comments that, oh yeah, it's coming. At this point in time, I don't envision it coming out. So I'll try to make this one sort of a mini 5 reasons you shouldn't back. If you're on the fence, if you're feeling like you need to go all in, I will attempt to assuage that FOMO and that hype element behind it. And also try to break it down in a little bit more detail. And who knows, maybe if I talk long enough, I can cut this and separate it into its own separate video, but probably not. It's Monday morning, crowdfunding time, baby. So we have their initial Kickstarter video, and this one really gave me pause because, well, in the film industry in particular, they really like to use stereotypical accents to either fetishize or diminish other cultures, really. We're kind of getting away from that now in the film industry, but that's kind of what it is. And so, I don't know, I was worried when I heard a pretty thick Japanese accent on this campaign video that is run just by 2 white guys, you know? I was like, oh no. Am I gonna have to feel icky about this? But what's awesome and what I do love is that it's actually the voice of the cultural consultant that they hired, and they have gone about it in a really respectful way to Japanese culture and Japanese heritage, and I love that. I think that is so important when you're dealing with these themes that aren't your own culture and are essentially entrenched in other people's culture. I think personally that is awesome. So I love that they're doing that. That really makes me interested in the campaign. And the game itself is very intriguing. I think I have said in the comments at some point in time that I saw it when they were looking for reviewers. Unfortunately, they weren't able to ship it to Canada. I was really interested in trying to get it to try to cover it because the art direction of this game is phenomenal. The cards look so streamlined with their icons. It seems simple. It seems like it's focused on simplicity and still giving you this feeling of moving forward, this nice light little skirmish game. Just the concept of a samurai battler, I was pulled in, and that might be drawing in a lot of you. Now the base pledge is $60, which isn't as cheap as I thought it was. I think just because of the currency conversion, 35 pounds seems a lot better than 60 bucks Canadian. So after shipping, I'm looking at around $75 for me. So that is what I am currently considering. That's the price point that I have to measure it at. But it is only around $75 because their shipping is fairly decent, which is worth mentioning in this horrible shipping time. But I think a lot of people will be considering the all-in because the campaign page itself does a great job at marketing, and a really good job, like you're looking at a game of epic scale and proportions when it's really just a quick skirmish game. This feels like it could be Lords of Ragnarok as you're scrolling through the stretch goals and the minis, and at half the cost, who wouldn't want to jump into that? But it's also, remember, it's a 15 to 20 minute game. So before you drop that $300+ on an all-in pledge, think about that. And in order to figure out that it's just a 15 to 20 minute game, if you know nothing about Senjutsu and you're interested, you've heard buzz of some sort and you're scrolling through the campaign, the amount of plastic that you have to scroll through is outrageous before you get to the section where they tell you how this game is played. And I always personally find this really annoying because I think if your game is fantastic, you're going to want to show off your game. If your game isn't fantastic, you're going to want to pretend that it is by showing off maybe all the stuff you get and could get and all the pretty little pictures. Tell people how to play the game sooner. This isn't a bonsai tree. This isn't just going to sit on a shelf. Games are meant to be played, and it's bananas how far down you have to scroll to actually get a hint of how to play the game. But when you finally get there, you will find out that this is a game of anticipating your opponent's movements and hoping that they anticipate yours. It's a game that when you know every card that's in your opponent's deck, it will become more fun. Because you can say, hey, I'm taunting you into using this card, and then once that card's out of the way, you know they'll have no defense to this certain thing. Or at least that's the hope. At least that's what I particularly like about this style of game. I like the bluffing element to it. It's fun when you can draw your opponents into doing something dumb and you do something different. And it's equally fun when they don't take that bait and you leave yourself exposed. But it's also going to be fairly random due to the size of the deck. They're 40-card decks. I don't tell you how far I had to search to get that information. So there's going to be a lot of choice. And yeah, you have a hand of 5 or 6 cards, so you're going to need that many so it cycles through, so you don't get too many stun cards. If you have a full hand of stun cards, you have 5 stun cards, you lose the game, which probably, I don't know, I don't see it happening. More likely, it's going to be the wound cards. You get to a certain number of wounds, you obviously drop dead. Because yeah, you're slashing each other with swords and not banging each other on the heads with pots and pans. Which is strange because I know that is what most samurai are known for, other than accepting Tom Cruise into their midst. So I think for this one, it just comes down to if you're interested in that sort of anticipation battle. And will it be annoying or repetitive if your cards don't come out in the right way, and if you really have to just keep on going through those decks to find your attacks or find the cards that are exciting. I really almost wish the decks were smaller because, again, I am worried that there will be those instances where you know exactly what your opponent is going to do because you've been keeping track of their deck or whatever. You don't have the thing to respond to them with, which I guess goes counter to what I was saying before. It's just that the tides are now turned on me, but you know what I'm saying, that the more cards there are, the less you're able to anticipate each other's movement and the less it becomes about tactical and more about jumping around in lightning quick attack and seeing who can get there first, really, as you stand together in the middle of the arena just slashing at each other one at a time. I mean, if you do want a fantastic bluffing game, I would direct your attention to one already on this list, where everything has the perfect counter, and that, of course, is Deluxe Rock, Paper, Scissors. But I mean, all in all, I'm super happy for them. As initial creators, having a Kickstarter of this magnitude is always very exciting. And they have additional games planned in this world and style. I think one of them is going to be a 4X game, which I am very intrigued to check out when that comes out. I'm sure that will also be a pretty huge success based around this campaign. And this is one where I was worried I would jump in on. I think worried is the wrong word, because obviously I want to jump in on games. I want to be drawn in. But I was worried I'd be drawn in and then let down, you know, or worried I would be drawn in too much and then not actually enjoy it to its full extent. And I think for this one, you absolutely do not need the add-ons. Like, I don't think you need any of them. I just don't think there's going to be enough difference with the mechanics to warrant all of those different characters. I might be wrong. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm wrong, if you think all the characters will provide that differentiation. But I really think this game will be better when you know the cards of your opponents. And the more characters you add, the less you get of that sort of predictability. And the more it kind of gets into this just random quick card slugfest. In addition, I think with the add-ons for this one, because it is at such a high funding goal, a few of them might be a little pasted on or will be developed as time goes on. Might be a little pasted on now because I doubt that they were expecting such a smashing success of a campaign. And so with that smashing success, you have to create these new stretch goals and these new add-ons. And sure, you probably accelerate planned expansions down the line that you were hoping to get to, but didn't really think you would. But I worry with those sorts of things that they won't be as streamlined or balanced as the initial game, which again is why I think if you are interested, just go for the base pledge. That's it. Trust. These additions aren't going to make it better for you to get it to the table more or less frequently. That's going to be if you like the style, the quick, skirmishy, guess my card, aha, I went first, ka-ching style of game. That's the official style on BGG. Look it up. Quick skirmishy, guess my card, aha, I went first, ka-ching. Obviously. Did we get to 5 reasons? I'm not quite sure. Let's see. Simple mechanics, probably plays best at 2. That's my guess. If you don't like the anticipation element, you probably won't like it, because to know thine opponent is to know thine self. Christopher Marlowe, that was him. If you don't think you'll play it enough for it to reach its peak potential, because I think this one will be better the more in-depth you know it. And, oh yeah, really annoying campaign page. I mean, really. Stop marketing to me so hard. I get it. It sells, clearly. Maybe don't stop. Maybe keep doing it because it clearly works. People like shiny things. Get that ink drop, which definitely isn't sun drop. But for me, it's a really big turnoff. It makes me feel like you're hiding minimal gameplay that you don't think people will be able to connect to behind all of these shiny things. So those would be 5 quick reasons. Kind of did it. Anyway, that's enough on that one. We still got a lot to cover. I've said that so much. I'm going to stop apologizing for it. I'm having a great time. I hope you are too. If you are interested, that is Friday, November 12th at 11:59 a.m. Next, we have Playte Game Rack. And the 3 games that come with it. Shout out to Carlos, who made me do all this extra friggin' work because this wasn't even on my list to begin with. I'm just kidding. He brought it to my attention. It wasn't on my list. Thank you very much for pointing it out. Now it is. And this is a unique one because it's just basically a card rack, which is used to hold your cards, which I've never been interested into. But in order to sell it a bit, they've got 3 different games that you could play with that card rack, and you could use the rack to hold things up and play with. And in order to get these 6 card racks and a dice tower, the box turns into a dice tower, which is kind of a neat thing. In order to get these, you have to buy a game, or you have to buy 2 game racks. They won't even let you just buy 1. So here they are. Let's go through it. First, we have Dragon Stripes, which is a quick push your luck game. You draw cards to move along the dragon's spines, collecting gold from the ground. I guess not his body. But you don't get anything if you draw a danger card. You have to go back to where you were, so you have to stop collecting gold and gems when you think a danger card is going to come up. Simple. Push your luck. First person to get to the head wins the game, because they obviously get a nice little smooch from the dragon and not because they take their sword and chop the dragon's head off. Clearly the first one. Or if all the danger cards turn up, whoever has the most gems, so basically whoever's made it the furthest along. And the reason this one is paired with the game racks is because the dragon stands upright. It's not really a good reason, is it? And this gives me probably about the same amount of excitement as Can't Stop. So if you love Can't Stop, that's your favorite game, go for it. If you want a semi-push your luck game with dragons that is also a deck builder, well, just play Clank instead. And it's always tricky because I think dice are always a better way to push your luck than cards. I feel with cards, and even with like bag building to a sense, there's a finite amount of stuff. You will have to stop eventually. With dice, you could roll 10 12s in a row. I mean, you're not going to, but you could. There's a chance. And that, to me, makes it a little bit more inherently exciting than card push your luck games. Now the next one is Ada's Library, which is also fairly cute and also doesn't need the game rack. But you have to organize your library quicker than the other person. So you're dealt a random hand of 10 books, you each have it, and then in the middle there are the 6 colors of cards, and you have to organize your library in that order. And what you're going to do is you have all these different cards that you play that allow you to move a blue book 2 spaces and swap with other things, etc. So you want to be the one to organize that library in the most efficient manner possible. Seems kind of fun, simple, light, probably the best on the list. And our third game is Mino Dice, which isn't actually Mino Dice, it's Minnow Dice because you're fighting a Minotaur. But to me, it's Mino Dice. And also, none of you are actually the Minotaur running around, but you can beat everyone with the Minotaur with your dice. The dice don't matter. It's basically a trick-taking game called Bugger Bridge, or Stick the Dealer, or Screw Your Neighbor, whatever you might have heard it from, where you're going to bid for the number of tricks that you think you can win. And each dice has a certain place in the hierarchy of where it can win, but there's always one dice that can defeat another dice. So there's always something that can defeat the Minotaur. I think it's a mermaid, or it might be a griffin. I'm not sure. And Bugger Bridge is actually a really solid trick-taking game that you can play with just a deck of cards and not these meaningless custom dice that don't need to be dice if they have the same picture on all 6 sides as some of them do. It doesn't need to be dice, but if it wasn't dice, then you wouldn't be able to use the dice element of the game trays when they're all stuck together in this hexagonal dice arena. Anyway, you throw your dice into a middle one at a time, like you're playing cards. It's a trick-taking game. It's a very fun one. You make a bid beforehand saying, I think I'm going to win this many tricks, and whoever makes their bid gets points. So you always have something to do, even if you have a horrible hand. Anyway, those are the 3. If you're really interested in the game rack, you have to have it in your possession. And you don't want to, and you want to know what game to get with them, I would go with Ada's Library. I just think that one's going to be light and fun and simple, and yeah. And then second, Minnow Dice, because it is a good game, but it's a good game you can play with a $2 pack of cards instead. Could have used the game rack for that. And then the dragon one, well, that's last. Well, it's second last. Kooky Cats is last, then the dragon one. Kooky Cats, Rallyman Cars, then the dragon one. Anyway, if you are interested, that is Friday at 12:01 a.m., aka Thursday night. Okay, let's keep it going with Catapult Castle, which is a dexterity game where you fire your little ammo balls into the other player's castle cup. And if you hit them, not only do you get to rip out their castle and stick it onto your own, but if you get them all, you win. This is $32 Canadian, $25 US to relive your siege fantasies, which are different from all of your CG fantasies. And honestly, this design, it's fantastic. Your ammo balls are probably going to go everywhere, but having just played Lupin Louie, there's something so immensely satisfying about a very simple flickin' game. And I think this would be a really accessible option to families. I remember Siege as a kid. I think it was called Siege. You had one side that had cannons and the other side that had little crossbows, and you were trying to knock down all of the targets on the other player's team. It was awesome. I had so much fun with that game, even though the crossbows were objectively so much better than the cannons. Here, you all have the same weapon. You're just flicking little balls into cups. What the downside is it's like $27 in shipping, so it probably will cost you double to get to your door, which is too bad because I really think this is just so simple, but is also going to be really good. I mean, I guess you could just get a spoon and some peas and some other stackable cups and probably have the same thing. The game's over when the ammo runs out, so just do a designated amount of little paper balls or whatever. I don't know, this one looks fantastic. Sometimes simple is great, and this is one of those times. Anyway, if you are interested in that, check it out. That is Saturday at noon. Next up, we have Chaos Fertile, and if my energy is shifted or the frame is shifted, I'm very sorry about that, and if you see me keep checking my phone, that's to monitor my audio levels because the back half of this video didn't record. And that's not great when you have a deadline. Well, deadlines are important. But don't worry, we're on to the next one, which I absolutely haven't talked about before and is fresh to me as well. And luckily, we have Chaos Fertile, whose tagline is Chaos Fertile is the first cooperative game that brings your dreams to reality. Get ready, your new life is about to start. And this is a very bold claim because I guess they've never heard of The Shared Dream, which is a cooperative game about your dreams becoming reality, or Etherfields, which is a cooperative game about you living in your dreams, or the Nightmare on Elm Street board game, which exists and has a sequel called The Freddy Game, but I guess those probably aren't cooperative. I've never played them. Or even Mysterium, which is a cooperative game about visions, which are kind of like dreams, and this is the point where if I had ever watched WandaVision, I would include a vision joke, but unfortunately, I'm a bad person at my core, and I have not seen it. So just somebody write a vision joke to go in the comments, and we can just pretend that I said it. Oh, I am so tired. But you're worth it. In any case, Chaos Fertile, you are a bold-faced liar, and you need to change your tagline. I know they mean dreams in terms of aspirations, so maybe talk about that. But then, of course, you couldn't talk about the game Dream Phone. Well, I guess it's not cooperative, but I know I have many aspirations when I play that game, and it's, of course, to nail George. Good thing we have the creators, Charles, who is an expert in collective intelligence, and Frank, who is an expert in systemic creativity. I can't even with this page. This page is so odd, I can't even. I made the wrong choice as to which one to cut, and I can't believe I'm returning back to it. I can, because I think it's pretty funny. Unfortunately, that's all I'm going to say about it because my fingers slipped accidentally. No, they really did. I had every intention of covering more of it, but my fingers slipped and closed the tab, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to move on instead of returning to a page that is clearly a cult recruiting ceremony wrapped up in a pretend board game. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. I didn't look at it. I didn't get past all of Frank's systemic creativity. But I will go back to Viking Raiders, which I was also thinking about skipping because I forgot to record the B-roll, but it's okay because their entire Kickstarter video is just this B-roll on loop in different sections and then cutting to Morton, who explains little bits about the game and also how he's from Denmark and is a true Viking. Anyway, this is a pretty simple game. You draw 2 cards from the deck on your turn, and you can use those cards as resources to buy buildings or different skill sets in the Viking way, or you can use the gifts of the gods to attack everyone else around the table. So it's really kind of like a take that card game, but hey, you get to draw 2 cards from a communal deck instead of 1. So bonuses, and I think there's at least a little bit more to it than throwing things against your friends. You at least have some resources that you can build up and hold on to, hoping to get an additional building or something. A raiding ship. That one is $6 for a print and play or $36 Canadian for the actual game, which is about double what I would like it to cost, honestly, for a basic card game. But I understand the costs and stuff. And hey, if you want to support Morton and his merry band of Vikings, well, they seem like nice Vikings to hang out with. I'll give them that. So that is Saturday at 3 p.m. Now, moving along to our next one, it is Marvel Dice Throne. And honestly, I don't have any updates for Marvel Dice Throne because they laid it all out on the line at the beginning of their campaign, and I really love that they did lay it out on the line. But there is one major update. They, of course, had a Marvel costume contest, and there was a winner picked who I hope is the same Gurgeli. I know I'm not pronouncing that right. You should hear the other take. But I hope it's the same Gurgeli that is commenting in these comments, is one of our subscribers. If so, awesome, you won yourself a copy of Marvel Dice Throne. If not, I hate whoever that other imposter is, and there's absolutely no middle ground. But Marvel Dice Throne, if you don't know, it's 2 characters fighting head-to-head against each other, and you can also play up to 6 characters, but no, don't do that. Nobody wants you to do it. Although there were some comments in the last video that said they really enjoyed the free-for-all nature, and they all had fun, and you just kept on jumping in with another character, and you can just do it however you want. It's dice rolling, fun, whittling down your opponent's health. I think it looks good, and the people who like it a lot. So if you are interested in checking that one out, that is Monday at 12 a.m., aka Sunday night. So next Sunday, November 14th. Now, next up, we have a weird one, really. And that's a game called Exquisite Crime. And this is part escape room, part Chronicles of Crime, part Mysterium, part storytelling. It's a really neat mashup of stuff. And basically you're going to get a prompt that you all answer together and set the scene for this mystery, this whodunit, as it were. And each person has to draw a particular part of that prompt. And I think this is the type of game that you want to play with people who are horrible at drawing or who are incredible at drawing. I think this can actually work both ways, because throughout the 2 to 3 hour experience, and it's about 2 to 3 hours per scenario, you're going to be drawing cards and getting prompts and drawing various parts of the scene, and then by the end of it you're going to have to deduce who the actual murderer is or what actually took place. It's pretty vague in terms of what happens and if there even is a solution, or if it is the journey itself that propels you there. But I don't know, it looks intriguing. I don't know if it's worth the $40 US or $50 Canadian that it would cost you. You get 6 scenarios out of this pack though, so if that is something that you feel might be up your alley, that sort of scenario collective experience, definitely check it out. They do have some print and play options, and it will be coming to Roll20 and be online. They cost only like $10 less, but then you wouldn't have to worry about the shipping. So I really do think fans of those one-shot escape room in a box might enjoy this same type of experience. If you have a group you've gone through them all and you want something new, maybe take a look at Exquisite Crime, and hopefully your drawings will be as exquisite as the crime. I'm a little skeptical, like I said, as to whether or not it will be satisfying. Hopefully it is. And you know what? I hope you love it. If you are interested, that is Tuesday at 10:01 a.m. And we're zipping along, at least it feels that way to me. Last but certainly not least, we have Caral, or Carol, if you're nasty. Or, by the actual pronunciation of the actual city in Peru, Coral. And now you might be wondering, did I just cover this game this week so that I could say Coral and make that joke over and over and over again? Did I include it back into this segment when I could have pushed it to next week because this is the second time I'm filming it? But is it worth returning to just for my own second dose of Coral? Only time will tell. Anyway, Coral, designed by the same designer as Corcuzor, doesn't really work. You take on the role of master builder, building up the city of Coral, building up temples and sacrificing what definitely isn't humans. It's just fish, I swear. Trying to get the most fame points before the middle temple gets built to completion. And of course, you're going to have to manage gathering stone from the quarries and making sure you have enough workers in various quarries, and how many little pyramids you can build along the route, because you're all going to take this same pathway, which is also taken by the architect. And as long as you're ahead of the architect, you can build things, because he just trundles along, judging you and everything in his path. The guy comes up with one friggin' shape, the pyramid, and you know what? It doesn't even have a roof on it. And he gets to lord that over everyone for all of eternity and just judge you. Just judge you walking by. What a friggin' jerk. Anyway, you still have to stay ahead of the architect, because if you fall behind the architect, well, he obviously can't survey your work, so then you obviously can't build any temples. So you gotta run ahead as fast as you can, chip a little temple up and say, "Do you like it, sir?" And he goes, "Looks like it's kind of going towards a pyramid for me. Sounds good." And then moves on. So you're trying to manage this architect, but what's kind of interesting is that the person who gets to the middle temple first, you're going to go through this pathway over and over throughout a number of years. So the person who gets there first gets to decide how slow or fast the architect moves on the next round. So they can kind of dictate that pace and push and pull your decision making, if you're going to have to run ahead and only build a little bit, or if you can slow down and really invest in building over that year. So that's kind of a neat thing to juggle. It has a deluxe edition for $123, which is absurd to me when all you're adding is these extra little temples. I mean, you're going to get a lot of them, to be fair, but for this type of game, I don't know. I don't think you need to spend $123 on it. I barely think you need to spend the $72 on it that the base game is going to cost you. I'd say just wait for retail, see how it hits with various reviewers when it's out, and make your decision from them. Even though it'll be easier to see the levels of the pyramids, I don't know if it enhances it by What's 50 out of 7? 74%? No. 71%? Whatever that number is that I just wrote. To be fair, that is the most beautiful version of coral that you can buy. But for me, you know, I'm an OG coral guy myself. Plain old regular base coral is good enough for me. So that's it. So every week I do a pick for you and a pick for me. The pick for me is something that I'm the most interested in, and the pick for you is something I'm also very interested in, but I think has potentially more broad appeal or might be the better choice. I always like to put you guys first, and then I can get the weird ones. So my pick for me this week is, it's a tough one, to be honest. If Turning Tides were a little bit cheaper, a lot bit cheaper, I would really be leaning towards it. It's a little too expensive for my price point. I mean, this other one is too expensive for my price point as well, but it just looks so unique. And usually I really like the unique games for this pick. And so I've got to go with Steam Up, A Feast of Dim Sum for Odin. It just looks delicious. I know it's a very simple, light game. It feels like the mechanics are going to be light, and it could potentially overstay its welcome or understay its welcome. I don't know how much depth of game you're going to actually get from it, but it just seems so simple. And the dim sum dishes are so brilliant. And yeah, you could easily have just 5 circles, and when one ran dry, you added more tokens. And then when the tokens ran out, your game's over. But they didn't do that. They gave you the little steam pots, so the steam can go up. That's how the game got its name, steam going up through the dim sum dishes. Yeah, it brings a smile to my face. If you pull that out, who's not gonna wanna play it? I think this is gonna be a wonderfully great way to get people into the hobby. So that's why my official pick this week is Steam Up, A Feast of Dim Sum for Odin. And then moving on to the pick for you, staying with that sort of accessible atmosphere. I want to say Catapults and Castles. I could say Catapults and Castles. I mean, Castle Catapult, whatever it was. Fantastic. So good. But I think my official pick is going to actually be, I'm struggling with this a bit, but I'm going to say Dice Throne. And it may not be for you to go and back Dice Throne, really. You can watch my 5 reasons you shouldn't back Dice Throne. If they apply to you, then this doesn't apply to you. This doesn't change that. And I think even still, this might just be a pick to go out and get yourself a copy of Dice Throne with 2 people and see if you like the system before jumping into the extra 8 characters. The people who like Dice Throne, they like it a lot. It's a simple game, be easy to entice people into the hobby with. And honestly, the fervor and enthusiasm from Dice Throne fans has made me very interested in the game. And like I said in my 5 reasons as well, I love the campaign. I love how it's been done. I love that they're subsidizing shipping. They're really doing everything right in the campaign. And I think that sort of commitment to their backers, finding that line, is something to be rewarded. And I've heard it's a great game, and I can see how it could be fun. Some nice light fun if you're interested in that. So that's my official pick of the week, Marvel Dice Throne. And yet, you may not want to get it either. So if you don't, then it's Castle Catapult. That's my alternate for you. Anyway, that's it for me once more. Hopefully this works. Yeah, it will. Oh, it will. What do I say now? Oh yeah. That is it for me. Please let me know in the comments what you're thinking, what you're backing this week. I know it's been a huge week, and I know there's been a lot of exciting campaigns out there, and I'm sure that many of you might be backing 1 or 2 or 3, and I'm curious which ones actually ended up garnering your attention, and which ones did you end up saying, no, I can pass on that, or I don't need this deluxe edition, I can wait till retail. So that's it for me. As always, thank you so much for watching. You are fantastic, an incredible community, and I really appreciate you all. Once again, my name is Chris George. I don't have a catchphrase, and I have no clue what the ending joke once was. I'll see you later. See you in the next one.